So high performing team have realized you need to have different styles of people, make it quite diverse. Making it diverse brings up, they're looking at three things at the board level. One, the biggest change for me as an individual in that leadership role was the one thing I did a lot is everything had to be done now, to go. I would say around 94% of these programs normally fail or stop or get paused because the boards look at these three lenses first. So speak that language. Don't talk about what's happening, what hasn't happened. They don't need a status report. That's what the CEOs are there for.
Sunil, it's great to have you on the podcast, one of Vertus Seven's advisors. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Glad to be here. Christmas is coming. It's on its way, so can't wait.
Yeah. Everyone's throwing around the C word, as you know, on the slope to Christmas.
Yeah.
Just the way we like to kick the podcast off, just to get things going, is we have one question from the last guest, and that question to you today: what was the most impactful business-related book that you've read, and why?
I think I've read a few. The most recent one was from Stephen Bartlett. I think that was quite an interesting one to read through. He was able to just synthesize how these things work in a more humane way. It's not words being thrown around at people with business mumbo jumbo jargon. It was quite simple, to the point, had some clear examples that you can relate to. I think he's a good narrator. I think that helped a lot. So I think that's one book which is quite impressive. I could also see how things have evolved a lot because he speaks a lot to different business leaders. So he's seen that and he picks the best from different leaders and makes it something of his own. So I think that was quite an interesting read. I have to go back. It takes me at least three reads to get it into my head and then becomes kind of a conversation topic. But I think that's one book I would say I highly recommend as well.
What would you say the biggest key takeaway from the book was that you've used today?
I think it comes down to a lot of stakeholder management. The one thing he keeps going on about is knowing your people, stakeholder management styles. I mean, there's so many books written about it, right? About how to manage people, stakeholders, difficult ones, nice ones, easy ones. They're never nice and easy, and most difficult in most organizations, and even in life in general. But I think the way he helps understand people's drivers and how to get the best out of a partnership is one thing that transcends just business speak. It transcends into personal life, how we behave as friends, even family to a certain extent. So I think definitely that aspect was quite impressive. As I said, it'll take a few reads to get through because there's so many books with so many styles. You get lost in those. But his was quite simple, put it that way. So yeah, that's definitely one thing I would say, which kind of worked well with me.
Nice. I'll definitely have to give it a read. I do think I have one that's been sitting on the shelf that I have to read.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of just bringing it back to yourself and just kind of getting a bit more about a bit more of an introduction, let's say, to the listeners. Just some high level, like you've worked across FMCG, aviation, real estate, consulting, and recently led one of Imperial Brand's most significant global transformations. Like, walk me through the key turning points that shaped your career.
Yeah, it's been a constant learning and growing experience for me in all these industries. One thing I've learned, we have industries which are quite different. Then we have regions where we work. So I had the pleasure of working in the Middle East, in Singapore, in the US, in the UK, in Europe. So we have different styles, cultures, behaviors, thoughts, feelings. So I think that was one of the area I've kind of learned and grown. The other was what kind of function you work in, supply chain, finance, commercial, sales, they're quite different. So all of these have to come together to make a business work. So that helped me grow in these roles as well. So I'm an engineer by trade. I love breaking things, making things, see things work. So that kind of drove me to the person I am now to make things work. People who are more into theory, they have to draw and write. Yeah, but I'm more of a getting things done, see if it works and how to make things work. So that kind of drove me to be the person I am now. I really want to get to an organization, see how to make things work, see what's broken, how to fix it. So I think that engineering mindset kind of keeps me excited and activated. So there were kind of three or four points in my life. none of them was scripted or planned, and they happened as they normally go in life. So first, I finished my university degree. I thought, where do I start my career? I said, I want to go to the US. That's my one place. I want to start my career in the US. So I went to the US. Boy, that was an experience. That's the first kind of turning curve. Move from comfort of where you lived, and home was UK for years. So now can I go to the US? It's a different way, different style of work. And most of my uni friends were in the US as well. So why not go there? So that was the first kind of turning point. Um, I think the second turning point was the dot-com bubble that burst because I was in the US at that point, and that led to not going to a tech company, going into a bank or something else. So that made me go into banking sector for a few years, work for Bank of America, Bank of New York, Wells Fargo, and different places in the US. And you get to know finance a lot. So I went from technology, i.e., from a telecoms point of view or engineering point of view, to a finance kind of understanding how finance works. Um, didn't enjoy it as much because you have month end, quarter end, year ends. It just never ends. I call it never ends in finance. So did that for a few years. Then the second point in my life was to come back home here and then stay with mum and dad because we had things to sort out at home. Then I said, where can I grow more? And then NHS had this massive program of transformation called NP Fit, National Program for IT. And what I remember fondly of that program is when I joined in, they said, "Oh, this is the world's biggest program." And I'm like, "What?" It was 896 million.
Yeah.
But what makes it big? And I remember him saying, his name is Leo. He said to me, "The top three employees in the world are the Chinese army, Indian Railways, and the NHS in the world in those days." So he said, "You're now working in the NHS, which is one of the biggest employers in the world." And like, wow, so that made me feel great, and that was an amazing experience. So that's the second turning point in my life. Did that for a few years. So I learned about patient journey, patient care, looking at stakeholder management, governance. That was a massive learning curve for me, learning governance in public sector.
Yeah.
Um, and I still go back to those days. My minutes from every meeting should be in a certain particular way because they had that rigor that public sector has, and also committees and committees and committees. I mean, that's something I call it death by committees in those days, or non-decision making by committees because it was voted by one guy in the end. So that was second or third big turning point. And then when that happened, I came to know how finance worked. I knew how public sector worked and governance worked, but what other industry could I work in? And then BAT came to picture, which is a massive manufacturing business. Yes, they make products like we all do. Every company does a product or a service, they do a product. But I was more keen on supply chain. But that's an area where I haven't done much. So I was in manufacturing, went to factories, looked at how they made things, how they moved things. So I was slowly getting to understand how the company works. So you source, you plan, you make, you move, and you sell. So I got the first few things. Sourcing was procurement, getting to know suppliers through finance is a key area. Planning was a big thing in supply chain. How much do you make? Where do you make it from? Where do you put it? Where do you store it? And then you make them, the actual, and then move the transportation. So got to know the kind of cross-functional supply chain aspects. Then I did sales or trade marketing for a year. That was an amazing experience. So that was a kind of a turning point from I went from government sector to supply chain. Then second last would be from there. I went to the Middle East. That was a massive cultural shift. It was different culture, different style of working, not so much time zone, but boy, the heat was a killer. And amazing how your life revolved around heat and not getting hot. I mean, that's all about that. Even your meetings have to be a certain time. So you don't take that into notice here. Midday meetings are like, no. Friday meetings during for prayers, no. I mean, you get to know a different style of work. Ramadan, people leave at 2 o'clock because they're fasting. So you have a different style of working, living. And that was an amazing experience for me, close to 6 years. And the last turning point was when I came back. When I came back to the UK, kids were grown up. They were little when we left. So we came back to, again, embedding us was back into the UK, paying taxes again. That was an interesting journey for me. But again, getting back into swing. So I think life took me a certain way, and the last gig I did was trying to bring all those different experiences. Because in the Middle East, I worked for Emirates Airlines and Etihad Airways and a real estate company. So I got to know more about, if you look at airline, the same thing. You need to have a product, have a service, get consumers, customers on board, and then make people enjoy their flight, for example. But that had all sorts of cross-functional elements as well. So, long story short, it's been a journey by itself, and along that journey, you kind of learn and grow. And last few years at Imperial was an amazing experience because they had a new strategy. They were going from they call it traditional tobacco-based products to a more vaping product or a nicotine pouch. So the consumer tastes are changing. And Imperial was an amazing place to work. Had amazing talent there, looking forward as well, not just looking backward. They had a clear strategy from the CEO to kind of make this kind of transition or pivoting from traditional to new gen products and the kind of drive and momentum they had. So I'm proud of what the team achieved the last few years when we transformed the UK and I business, which is I would say 33% of the business. It's a big chunk, and we built a transformation muscle there. And through that, we were able to make a few changes to the way we work, new ways of working. Yeah, it's an amazing experience. So yeah, that's kind of my journey since university to now, essentially.
One thing that stood out to me there was that you pivoted many times into different cultures, different sectors, different positions. Like, what made you want to pivot and take on a new challenge? Because I think naturally, as humans, that we don't like change. We can say we like change, but if we actually do like change, it's a whole different story. Like, what made you decide I'm going to completely go after something that I've never done, I have no experience in, and push myself outside my comfort zone?
One, I like a challenge. It gets a lot more complicated when it's not just you having that challenge, it's your whole family that has the challenge with you. So I think always challenges me, if I could say that, because it gets the best out of me. I always feel if I'm on my toes and learning, the more you try to learn is by challenging yourself. If you think you've done it, been there, and know everything, you won't challenge yourself, you won't learn. So one is a challenging aspect of me. Second is you learn, as I said, because there's no way you could learn being in the same place. I mean, sorry, I'll take it back. You would learn a few things, but not the same things you would learn in different places, different cultures. So I think your learning is an exponential learning curve at that point. So that's the second one. Third is not having regret. I think this is something on a positive side. If I don't try anything, I should not think when I'm old enough, wish I had done that, wish I had done this. I think that will not make me happy. No matter where I'm in my life, that will be something I should have tried. Now, everyone said to me, "Are you absolutely bonkers to go to the Middle East in 2015 when we have just it takes 7 years from the issue we had in the global recession? You're going to a new country, your kids are little." I said, "Well, the kids are the right age. You can't go to them when they're 16, 17, so that's the kind of window we have. Um, if not now, never." It wasn't easy. I mean, every change was really hard. And the culture in the Middle East is so different to how what we have kind of grown and raised here. It was exponentially harder for me as a person. But then that's what made me who I am now. So when I came back to the UK, I've had a bit more experience than the others. I could share what I've learned. I had some examples. The companies that I work for were phenomenal. They had their own challenges, like every business has. So the question it was, I think, challenge, to summarize it, is one thing that kept me kind of going this way. Learning and growth, they go hand in hand. Second one, and then not having any regrets in the future. And like, why not? So I think that's something would say why I went through these things.
And what first drew you towards transformation leadership? And out of interest, just to add another question onto that question, is with those experiences now that where you have gone through those changes and experienced different cultures, has that changed your leadership style to today?
Oh, the second one is a powerful one. Let me take the second one first, if that's fine.
Fine.
I think if a leader doesn't change in his or her style, they haven't grown into a leadership role. When you're young, it's something that's quite natural. You want to show, you want to prove, you want to do things, you're energetic, you're going to go around. I do this, I do that. It becomes me.
Yeah.
Me, I, because you're young, you're learning. It's not wrong, it's learning. You can't become a manager when you finish university. It's not going to work. What will you manage? You don't know what, you haven't done it yet to manage things. So there's a certain level of growth that comes with it. Slowly, as years go by, it's us. How can we do it? Not like us, as in just my team, us as leaders in an organization, because my peers are also an us. I think that distinction came later in life. Us, when I started, is my team, it's my thing. That was still mine. It's not us at that point. It only becomes us when the team I was working in or with is has the same relationship with my peers and their teams. That's the us. And then from me to us to enterprise. That's the third level. Then you look at a company level what needs to be done. So I have grown through those kind of layers. It was first me and then a bit of us, and then you think, I wouldn't say them, but enterprise. You think big picture, you think strategy. So as a leader, you need to have that evolution in them. Some leaders are good at being the me side, because they'll always be a middle manager and say, I'm happy where I am. It's also where you're comfortable with, because every role in leadership tests you. It puts you in the spot. I've made some horrible mistakes as a leader. I'm still making a few mistakes for sure. But then you learn from those, because if you don't do, you don't learn. And I've got some really good mentors who I've worked with in the past who are still mentoring me, because I could learn from their experiences and their context as well. So I think as a leader, I had to evolve. There were areas where I could have done differently. If I told myself, the one thing, the biggest change for me as an individual in that leadership role was trying to tell yourself not to be liked more. Because when you're young, you want people to like you. So you do things. And as you get older, because you get wiser, I don't care you like me or not, but I get things done. So it's not about them not liking you, them trusting you. And that comes not being arrogant, not saying don't worry about, don't care. It's more about don't care so much about you, just care about the outcome you're trying to achieve. I think so. Moving from making people trust you than liking you was a massive change. I think fundamentally, as human beings, when we are raised, we always are raised to be liked by people. You do things to be liked by people because we think that's a way to get social. When you like someone, they are my friends. And in a corporate world, you can't just rely on liking, because you'll always upset people at work because some things you do or you decide may not fit with them. But if they trust what you do, they end up not liking you but going with the flow. So as a leader, one of the things for me was trying to be trustworthy. Yes, you have to be liked, but use empathy to be that kind of liked guy, not to like people, to be liked by people. I think that was the thing I would say. So yeah, to your question on leadership, still a long way to go. I've got my faults, and I've had this amazing coach in my previous company, and he gave me a lot of insights about me. He kind of peeled my whole style of work and how I think. And he said to me, thoughts, feeling, behaviors. Keep an eye on that and how these three change as per the context, how you feel, where you are. Be that vulnerable leader. I was never a vulnerable leader. It's always about strength and I can do everything I want, and showing people that you are actually there will be times and places where you will not be that strong. You are actually a human being. You're made of faults and you're with faults. That's how you come with. So accepting that and also telling people I am that made a big difference. So there are certain elements in leadership that have changed and evolved. But again, making sure people trust you, not more than like you. That's one of those things to make. Um, think me as them. I think them as an enterprise is a big thing I've always learned. And be that leader with a lot of empathy dialed in. I think the three things I'm still working on is active listening, because that's an area where it's so hard. It's easy to say. When you listen to any conversation, you're so eager to respond, you actually don't listen. And it's such a skill. Some people are so good at it, and I'm not, and I'm learning that. Second is having empathy at all times, not when you need things. I think that's an area where I've always realized having that dialed up empathy, because then you kind of link with people a lot more. And third, being that leader who's vulnerable. That doesn't mean you start crying and weeping in meetings. Just you share how you feel as a person. And I think that is a strength rather than a weakness. So there's the three things I'm working on. So it's a long way to go. But again, yeah, it's a constant journey. Remind me your first question, please.
What pulls you towards transformation leadership?
There wasn't a pull per se, it was more of a push from where I was in life. Because when I was doing things, as I said, an engineer, you break things and great. And then if you look at that, you become a designer. When you're a designer, you design things based on what you've made and fixed and broken or broke in the past. So you kind of get through a designer phase as an engineer. And then you become this visionary. So you go from a vision to design to execution. I think the three big things I would say. And I've seen that transformation is change in a more sustainable way, right? So it's not a one-stop change or change is done. It's a constant evolution of change. And when you're making change, you make things happen. So you actually make things happen consistently. All right. So that means for transformation is making change, which is consistent and sustainable, i.e. getting things done. Right. So it kind of sits on my values and belief of getting things done. And to make it sustainable, which is change, which is sustainable, transformation became a phrase I got used to slowly. Oh, yeah, I'm transforming this. I said, what does that mean? So we need like a body transformation. I'm transforming my body, but what does that mean? I'm putting more muscle, I'm losing fat, gaining weight. Okay, that's three. Okay, you want to change your diet. Okay, so transformation is how you look at the end, which is your body is transformed, but the changes on diet, exercise, water, that's all that change that transform your body, right? So you can't just change without transformation. So with these kind of thoughts in my head, right, what's how can you make a change sustainable in a business? I'll give an example. When I joined an FMCG, their operations were great, the throughput was great, but they were operating at 52%. I'm like, okay, how can you make it 60%? You have to make a few changes. Great. They said, look at the turnover of staff, look at the time it takes to change staff, and look at which product takes longer in the supply chain. Great. So make three changes. Have the same size buckets. Great. So that's easy. Have the next crew ready to change. So turnaround time is minutes, not hours. And when they leave, they actually give a handover not at the same point. Great. By doing that, your throughput increased by 8% more. Great. 50 to 60. Perfect. But that's now it's not sustainable. Now, how can you make sustainable? Then you have to transform the way you look at lining those products, look at rostering those individuals, looking at schedules. Then that's a sustainable change that brings transformation. So when we ended that initiative, we were at 75% transformation. What did we do? We changed the lines. We made them three specific lines with three specific products. And then for each product line, we had a specific rostering in place. So that made it not 50 people, 10 times 3, 30 people. So we reduced the staff, 10 in each lane. We went to change people. Suddenly, your efficiency grew. Why? We looked at the process. So that excited me. So doing those things, right, you're transforming change for longer term. That's exciting. So that kind of pulled me towards it in the end. A bit of push, from where I was, a bit of pull, and then when you look at things happen, I really enjoy it.
When did you know you were ready? Because I speak to a lot of people that are kind of that assistant director or maybe just below that, kind of being the CIO, being that transformation leader. When did you know you were kind of ready to steer the full ship, so to speak? And what was the biggest shift maybe in terms of what you needed to get to that level?
The first one is quite an interesting one, right? So when we have leaders who are born leaders and leaders who are eager to be a leader, right?
Yeah.
Born leaders have gravitas, they can talk, they can engage, they can excite people, bring people together. I think they are ready leaders. I call myself a recovering introvert. So I have to make sure I get people along. How do I get people along? And you have to kind of fight your own battles first to get excited, make people excited, and then keep the excitement going on and on. Why I'm saying this is when I was initial days, I just want to get things done. I don't want to lead. There's too much headache, people, problems, just too much. I get my thing and go home, right? Then you see the impact you have on people when things happen. Like, oh, I can be a leader. I can be a team leader. Okay, great. Oh, I can be a product manager now. That's quite good. I can manage not people, not just people, timelines. Then, oh, I can manage big budgets. Wow, I can manage big budgets, big people. Then you manage big egos. Oh, I can manage big egos. And he just goes big and big. He just takes a step over and over again. Why I'm giving the story is, as a leader, some people love this from the beginning. I was learning this on the train. Every role I was doing, I was picking up. But at some point, I thought I was ready, but then there needs to be a leader above you who thinks you're ready. You need to have that person above you thinks you've got potential, you've got talent. All you need is an opportunity. Some people are always ready. Some people it takes time to get ready. And some people are never ready and they get pushed into, can you do it? And there were two instances. Once I was working in a company, I remember I went there. The first job was to look at all the initiatives and say, what can I stop? What can I start? What can I continue? That was my role. Went to all those 80 projects, went one by one. Everyone hated me. He's coming there to stop my project. That's why he's here. I said, not really. I'm trying to understand where things are. And I went to my boss and said, continue with these, no problem. Start these, but boy, stop these three. They are horrible, right? And I was a portfolio manager at that point. I was just managing a portfolio, not individual projects. And my boss said to me, nah, you go, you fix it. And I was like, what? No, I don't fix it. It's a basket case, not me. No, no, you fix it. You've done the assessment. You know where the things are. Do it. So that push came from him. Now, he only pushed me because he saw something in me that I can actually do it. And that I'll never forget that day thinking, oh my God, I'm actually not just a project manager, or sorry, a portfolio manager. I'm actually a program manager. That was £40 million initiative. And I had to let the person leading go and lead the team now. They're like, who is this guy? This guy just came in, reviewed, and then become the boss now. So I had to manage that dynamic, work with the team. No one liked me, and I was feeling to be liked, but no one would like me. They're like, oh, this guy take my job away. It was tough, but I had my boss saying, work with it, learn from this experience, because this will happen regularly in your life, like it or not. No one's born with the initiative from the beginning. You always push in some position. So to your question, I think yes, you think you're ready, then that takes a while for some people. It took me a few years to get there because I was thinking, why do I need the hassle? Not just I can't do it. Then I took the challenge of me being pushed into the role. And once I was pushed in the role, that I just got into it. I want to go more. So I love when I have to recover a program or restart a program, or bring it back to life in a certain way, give it some agility. I've out of around 16 I've done, eight, almost half, yeah, have been recovery, resets, and the rest have been starting from scratch. Both had these challenges. So I think that's what I feel that I was kind of fortunate enough to have leaders who kind of pull me and make sure I get that opportunity.
And you've led transformations at the highest level, and you've also been accountable directly to boards and executive committees. What's the real pressure behind board level transformation that most people don't see?
Any significant investment from the board, they're looking at three things at the board level. One, what's the risk? Not to the business, to their investment in the business. Because the business is run by the CEO, right? So they don't expect them to see. That's a different conversation. What's the risk to the investment on the business, which this transformation is trying to achieve? Second, what's the opportunity? What they haven't unlocked or tapped yet, because there's something they're looking at. And third, what's the ROI? It's all about ROI for them. Great, it's a risk, but what's the return of that investment? So, board for any large global messy transformation, they know these programs typically fail because I would say around 94% of these programs normally fail or stop or get paused or completely shut because they're not run effectively. There's no governance, no clarity of reporting upwards, there's no transparency because there's no point having risk and opportunity and ROI if you don't report those things in a more transparent, honest way. What I've realized is the boards look at these three lenses first. So speak that language. Don't talk about what's happening, what hasn't happened. They don't need a status report. That's what the CEOs are there for. Talk the language of this is the initiative, these are the big risks, these are the opportunities that we're unlocking, and this is the ROI we expect, not today, not tomorrow, in certain years in these buckets. And these are the meaningful changes coming your way. So I think that lens is very important to understand. Second, you have to be very transparent. Not talking about your life problems and the issues you have, but in terms of what the lenses they look at. Say, risks should not be things you say, oh, risk of the building falling down. That's not a risk. Risk is we have people who would burn out because they've been working so long for so many hours that they, if they leave this program or organization, there will be a brains trust issue or people will leave with talent and it'll be hard to recover. That kind of risk thereafter. So be very open and transparent. Also be very humble when things don't go well. The one thing I've always seen, the last I think 3 to 4 years, when you say, I didn't do this well, or we could have done this differently, they look at you quite differently because most boards see everything is green, bit of amber thrown in, and then, yeah, my job's done. Well, not really. They call it the watermelon status report. It's green on the outside, but massive red inside. So I don't do those watermelon reports. I just do red, amber, green, and with clear why being position. So humility comes through. I could have done this differently. However, I've learned A, B, C, and D. I think this is where they're looking at so what. So having that humility with facts is very, very important. On top of being open and transparent. At the end of the day, they are human beings. I mean, you treat them as same. Don't treat them as, oh my God, because end of the day, they're there in their role, working in the best interest of the company. So am I, and so is my team. To treat them as human beings, normal, have a conversation, and they'll appreciate that. So there's a softer side to it. So as I said, one is being very clear on facts, figures, by being open and honest and transparent, being humble with all the things which you haven't done or what you learned from it, and more, and then on the three lenses, and have a conversation with them. They appreciate that. Have I done it well? Yeah, I could always do things better. There've been a couple of screw ups in my life, thinking, could have not said that, or I should have said that, because people believe that by hiding things, you're not lying, but they always get found out. So rather say where things are. They'll trust you for that. They may not like you, back to the same point earlier, but they trust you for that. I think that's something I would say the board always looks at. And every board is different, by the way. Some boards are cutthroat, some boards are, just nicey nicey. Some boards don't ask many questions because their interest is to be there, listen more, and then the questions go to the CEO in different conversations. They don't come in front of you. One thing I would always say to anyone going for any board presentation, be really, really aligned with your CEO, because you need to have the same messages. If you're out of sync is fine. Completely out of balance, and you say the exact opposite of what the CEO said, they will not look at you more. They say, look at the company. They can't even get it just aligned.
Yeah.
So always be clear, that with your CEO, where you position yourself, what topics they're aware of, what they're not aware of, not to hide things, just be aligned. And you can also say, this CEO doesn't know this, but this is my opinion. So you can also stand on your own conviction, saying, I haven't checked with him, I haven't said, but this is my view.
Yeah.
I think this they appreciate. I think that comes down to how confident are you in those forums. And one thing I've also seen is how you come across in these forums. Some people are quite guarded, scared. They sit, they don't move much. The more you see them as just individuals, leaders, helping you be successful. Because at the end of the day, board ask questions to understand and see how you can help them. They're not there just to critique and go home. They're not there for that. So by being open, they feel that they made a difference by giving a suggestion. Or in one board meeting, I said, I am struggling with this. I've tried my own network. This is the best I could do. And the board member said, listen, I am a CEO of another company. I know the person quite well. Let me put you in touch with them. So I think by not saying that, he would have never said that. And I would have thought, well, I have a network now. If I need something or any advice, or if he needs advice, I'm there. And suddenly the two companies got closer because of the one chat I said, I'm not able to do this. I remember my CEO saying, that's good, you said that. I never checked that with him beforehand because we just came out of the blue at that point. But the fact was, by saying these things, they appreciate that. So, in summary, they are normal people, they are nice, yes, they are tough, but their job is to ask questions, to understand and help, not to just poke, poke, poke. I think that's one thing. The boards I worked in, I can't talk on all boards. Be very open, transparent, humble with things could go wrong or what hasn't gone well, but just be open with that and just be transparent with everything you report on. And think on three lenses: risk, opportunities, and ROI. By doing these things, I think every person would learn on the go how each board works.
You spoke about like successes there, but I think before we talk about successes, we have to talk about failures because people want the real stories and they want to understand what's gone wrong. And in my experience and speaking to other leaders on the podcast, that's where you learn the most. Is there one particular failure in your career, or it might even not be in your career, that you've learned more than from something you've done well?
You're bang on. I mean, we always learn more from our mistakes, and I always go back to human psychology. If you ask yourself, when was the last time something broke, or when you were little, you say, "Ah, this broke here, that broke here," because you remember that. I'll never do that again. So I went on a bicycle ride with no helmet, fell head first, cracked my head open.
Oh wow.
I'll never forget that. Well, from that day onwards, I'll make sure I ride the bike with a helmet on. So I think we are trained to always learn from mistakes. I
Mm.
think as we get older, we think we don't make mistakes. That's a fallacy. I'm still making mistakes, but you learn from them. So yes, there were a few mistakes. Um, I would say I would not do again. One of the things, I joined the transformation program. They were in proper reset mode. So they had around 800 people. They had 10 leadership team members. I was told we had to let the leader go because it was not the right place to work. It's a different style of work, and that person was so good in telling everything was, as I said, watermelon green, from the green on the outside and on the outside and red inside. We couldn't get any trust built. So it was quite a simple challenge. Rebuild the trust of the leadership team at the top, i.e., the board. Re-energize your team because they'll be kind of feeling a bit, oh my God, we start again, and then re-establish your partnership with your partners because you need to get all three. I was given 3 months because we're in a different phase. And what I thought is, oh, I'm a superhuman. I've learned so much. I can manage all three in one go. So I went up and met all the board members, look at where things are, went to my team, how to make you work together, talked about that, went to our partners, like we are in this together, how to make it work. And it got to a point where I was doing all three things in my head really well, but dropping balls of actually what I need to be doing, getting the program up and running in a way that it can deliver something. I focus so much on stakeholder management and getting those ducks lined up. Each duck I line up, one is to come down, get on the water. What's happening there? Because no, because that's not floating. Why? Because we're not lined up. Or we're lined up, but it's not sustainable. So I thought, what can I do differently? So I had to make sure I kind of split my work around in a way I'm not overwhelmed by that, and I can't keep everyone happy. So I try to do everything. Keep my partners happy, keep my team happy, keep my peers happy. No, someone has to be said, I can't do that. And I said from now on, manage expectations. So instead of trying to keep everyone happy and everyone's upset by them not being happy, and then you get upset that you didn't make them happy, then forget that. Sit with them. I can do this now, this later. If not, help me prioritize that because this is my way of looking at it. My team, this is what I'm thinking of doing. What do you guys think? Right, be clear. Let's crack on. I think having that compartmentalized time, making sure I manage those expectations in a way. Yes, they may not like the amount of time I spend with them, but I come back to them. One and secondly, keep connecting with them offline. One thing I don't do in that I met everyone, I never joined the dots. And I thought, always meet them and also keep joining the dots. So when I say join the dots, you tell the partners, I met the board, met the team, I found these things. Team, I met the partner of the board, I found these things. And keep joining them, and then they get to know what's happening. Because I knew what was happening, they weren't. Partners knew something, board knew something, team knew something. So realize first, manage expectations, and then join the dots and make sure people are aware what the dots are so they're in the same. And suddenly everyone is in this together, not me doing all by myself. I think that's, I would say, one of the key learnings for me. It's very hard because when you get into a role, you want to get things done, you want to do everything, but then you realize it's just you have 24 hours in a day, it just doesn't work, and people always have a view and an opinion. If you go behind opinions and views, you're stuck behind that rather than getting things done. And that's a big learning for me.
And moving on to successes, you've driven results like 22% sales and growth, 35% efficiency improvements, 54% revenue uplift, and built high performing teams at global scale. What success stands out most for you and why?
In that statement is the last part, it's the team. Because
Yeah.
when you said me, I haven't done any of this. It's the team that did it. Yes, I was there making sure we have a clear vision, we're getting things done, managing the exceptions, escalations. That's what I do, right? But the team does the heavy lifting, making sure there's arms around the team. You roll your sleeves up. You don't want to be a leader who just arms around, but you roll your and then but the fingers should be out. The fingers are for the team to do. So I think the high performing team um, makes things work. The previous company I worked for, what I was most chuffed about is not what happened when I was in that role. Even after I left the role, the teams are just smashing it out of the park every month. That for me is success. I know it sounds so corny and cliche, but I can tell you, I feel so happy that the team now is self-sufficient and get things done. I think that's the sign of a good leader, rather than a leader who just once the leader goes, the team just falls apart. That's not leadership because you need to have more leaders there to take it forward. High-performing teams, building that high-performing team, is something I'm trying to learn more and more. There were a couple of mistakes I made, even in the previous gig. I will do it differently now, but I think that's how you learn. So teams make things happen, and I think that's one area I think um, I'm developing more and more as I go along. And then you have team of teams. This is when you become an enterprise leader, and how you make the team of teams work together. Yes, they have differences and opinions and all sorts, I think, but they need to have that longevity. I think, yeah, I think that's, I would say, success is my success is only because the way the team has done this. Team has done this is not my success, and me making sure we had a psychological safety within the team to see how they feel, how they think, how they behave, um, and how I behave around them, an area I'm always working on. That made a big difference for me. So, to your question, teams make a big difference. You're only as good as your team, and having that team mindset, getting a high performing team to deliver those outcomes you mentioned is something I'm quite proud of them, for sure.
My question was going to be how to build high performing teams and talking about that, but I'm actually going to change it because I think people always think, how do I get a high performing team or, how do I get the most out of individuals, which I think that's a whole topic in itself. But one thing I've noticed, and coming from a corporate, is how do you deal with high performers? Because I think sometimes people think high performers are demanding, they ask too much, and there's so many different things you could say, but it's also they're like a stakeholder you have to manage. And I've always flipped on its head, and I've always seen high performers as people that want the best for the organization. They might be demanding, they might ask more, they might, put people in uncomfortable situations at times, maybe sometimes need to play the game better. I could be granted, but how do you deal with hypos is what I always call them, but high performers? And obviously keep that kind of message, like you said, as a leader, is dealing with those teams and you're only as good as your team. But I think that that's a whole different area sometimes people don't think about.
I think what I have seen, high performing teams have to demonstrate something called radical condor. So you have to say how you feel, how you think. In the previous company, we had something called care labels. So we did this kind of thing. To be a high performing team, we need to first understand each other. What ticks you off? What makes you happy? Who are you as an individual? Not about your family history, but about who are you as an individual. And the one thing I'll never forget is how do you behave under stress? How do we know that you are under stress? Now that was a tough one. We all have to do it individually. And mine, if I speak too fast, if I'm writing notes furiously, if I'm asking questions without even listening to your answer, I am under stress. So focus on not what I'm doing, why I'm doing, and look at the markers of those. So when you know I'm under stress, the last thing you tell me that at that point is ask a question which will make it even worse. So we call them care labels. So understand about the individual first. We did that. It was a question, what stresses you out, right? And how do we know you're under stress? The two most difficult questions. What you like, don't like is the easier one. So we got that. So we understand individuals first. Then and the biggest thing I see at work is knowing a person when they're happy is so different to when they're under stress because you have different thoughts, feelings, behaviors. Um, so by knowing that, you know how to make sure you care about each other, not about the task, but each other. You're stressed, take a break, let's catch up later. You keep pushing that point, you break as a team. So one is that. So understanding. Second is radical condor. So you tell exactly how you feel. That's the second skill we have to learn. If you keep it amongst within yourself, it's like a poison tree. It just gets worse and worse and worse. So knowing how we are, telling how we feel, second important. And then third, you always have to stick together, right? No matter how thing bad, good, ugly they are, you stick together. You should not feel you're left out or you're by yourself. I call it hunting in packs. Wolves always hunt in packs because they get things done. They are the strongest animal in the kingdom, not lions or hyenas or tigers. Wolves are. They hunt always in packs. That's why they win things. So I said, be like a wolf, hunt in packs, be together, know each other. And high performing teams have those skills. The challenge is when you're under stress, you discuss a lot, you don't do much. So we had this kind of typical consulting speaker said 4x4 matrix. We didn't have any of that. We said when you're under stress, you go from a high performing team to a low performing team. What does that mean? You talk a lot, you argue a lot, you don't get things done, you keep things to yourself, you go very quiet. So it's the exact opposite of a high performing team. So what we said to ourselves is, how do we see ourselves as a team when you're not performing or low performing? We put those down. So we took that as a guide. So if we get to that point, we need to have a break, take things out of the meeting room, have a chat, go for a walk, have a beer, have a coffee, whatever it takes. So to your question, high performing teams have that. One, know about yourself. Second, know about each other. And third, talk about each other when you feel. Because when you have that, you have a high performing team getting things done by not getting tangled amongst ourselves, but getting that outcome more positively. I think that's the hardest bit. And you didn't ask the question, but one thing I've learned when you have these teams, you can't have people who think the same, walk the same, talk the same. It doesn't work like that. You'll only get different thought, feeling, behaviors, and if you have different cultures, if you have different ways of thinking, it's not about male, female anymore. So in my team, I had different culture. I had a Malaysian, I had a Polish, I had German, I had British Asians, and boy, it's tough. Italian. So you ask a question, you get six different ways of the same answer, and then they all think they are right. And then no, but yes, you're right. But how about this? And if you take an answer which goes to one person, oh, you like that? No, no, I don't like that person. I like the answer. So you have to be kind of fair, and you have to explain what fairness is as well, not just in your mind. So having that different culture, kind of not just male female, makes a massive difference. And in the same thing, there'll be some who are from the business and some who are from outside the business. So they've got three things in the same place. And under stress, it's just so noisy because everything. I know. I give an example. I know a guy who's been there for 24 years, and he is Welsh. Not saying they were Welsh, but his view was, "I'm been 18 years. I know it's never worked before." Other team was a guy from Malaysia. Oh, this is just debacle. I've heard this before, and we had that. And then the Italian saying, "I don't care," and we have all sorts of things flying in under stress. He was like, "Wow, how do I make this work?" At that point, you say anything is wrong because it's just so you have to make sure you understand that. So high performing team, I realized you need to have different styles of people, make it quite diverse. Making it diverse brings that different thoughts, feelings, behaviors, how they take, how they don't work. Then even radical condo is quite different. Germans are, when I've seen, they're really straight to the point and get things done. Again, I'm not general. I'm just saying what I've seen. And then some just are very quiet. They don't say a word. They kind of tease it out. And culture makes a big difference. By having that kind of setup, I think you get a really good team. It's quite hard for the leader because there are times when you really struggle with that. But that's the whole point of having a team that's so diverse.
And when leaders say people resist change, what do you think they're actually missing?
That they need to know what change means. You mentioned earlier in the podcast as well, right? Change is not something we like. We like stability, consistency, repeatability, because it gives us assurance that nothing is broken, it won't break. So I think change and assurance, they kind of go not in parallel, but they kind of dip into each other. Because if things don't change, you know you get up a certain way, you come back a certain way, you see things normal when things don't change. But we know nothing's the same every day, which is the constant. That's what the change is a constant. So if someone says, "Oh, they're resisting change," they don't understand. So why, when people resist change, I ask them just two questions from my point of view, right? Why do if you say, "Can you do this?" Or any question, as an individual, I say, "I'll have two things for you." Right. One, what's in it for me? Okay, great. Then, what do you want from me? I think that they're the two things you would think at. So if you're able to think along those two questions, you understand why they are resisting change, not they are resisting change. So always think as change from their point of view. They will be thinking, what do you want from me and what's in it for me? If you make them understand that, or say, I don't know these answers. I have no idea what's in it for you. I don't know what I need from you, but we need to do this. They would like that because at least you're open about it. If you make things up, they're like, I don't trust you. You cannot be a change leader if you, one, you can't articulate change by asking these questions, or just be honest about change. I think this is where when people say, oh, they're resisting, I say, no, you need to understand more why they're resisting. So once we understand the why, you have to change the narrative to why not. That's a positive way of looking at change. Why not? Why can't you change? Then you get to know the underlying psychology as to why. It's not because of the questions they asked, because maybe they don't want to change or they've seen too much of it. Change makes them nervous. They feel there's jobs at risk. They're at risk. So if you get to the underlying whys and the why nots, then it's a lot easier to manage change. Change comes through narrative, not just by actions. I remember this a guy told me in a meeting one, I'll never forget, said, Martin Luther King never said, I have a plan. No, he didn't say that. He said, I have a dream. He just took people with that dream, not with a plan. He didn't say it's all sorted out. No, he said, this is my dream. So I think dreams will get people going because they can dream about things. And they didn't say, what's in it for me? No, because in that he said, this is what equal rights and blah, blah, blah. He explained what's in it for them. And they said, what do you want? I want A, B, C, and D from you. So that was a very simple way of saying the same thing I said earlier. So I think that's so important in change. To all leaders who think they are resisting change, change comes with resistance. That's a given. That's not, if a change comes with no resistance, you're not changing anything. You're just doing what you did in a different way. And that's not change. So that'll be my advice to those leaders.
And if you could go back and talk to Sunil from 10 years ago to summarize, what's the 3 points you would tell him?
As I said, one thing was I was so keen and eager to make people happy, right? Or please people. So they just believe in yourself. Don't try to please people. Do the right thing, and people will be pleased or not. Live with it. Try to deal with people not being happy with what you said or done, but there'll be people who like what you've done. I think that's the one thing I would say again and again and again, because that's one thing which I've seen many young leaders do and still do it. But that's how we are. I think that's very easy to say now in hindsight. We all become hindsight specialists because at a certain age. I think that's something I would always say. Don't focus on what you're trying to achieve, not and get that trust than trying to get people to like you. Second thing I would say is you don't have to be the strong leader that you think you've been raised to believe a leader should be, right? Don't be, I know everything, I've done everything, and I can get things done. Yes, we have some issues, but I just brush them aside. No. Be that leader who you knows these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, and this is what I'm doing about them. Just be open about that. And you will never know from what place or angle people come and help you by saying that. I mean, if I had the kind of coaching I had now, I would have been a much, much better person. I've learned a lot more, a lot earlier. So I think second one is just that. The one thing I did a lot is everything had to be done now, to go, go. I was called Mr. Duracell, like the battery. I would never stop. Go, 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 go. I mean, and that took a toll on me as an individual because I was always going to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So taking time to pause, reflect, and pivot a lot more. Not just pivoting. Pivoting became a thing. Go, go, go. Pivoting is great, but I should have taken more time to reflect. I think that's so easy to say, but so hard to do. I would say to that Suno, also take care of your hair because I had some horrible hair products when I was young, so I regret that. choice of shampoos made a big difference. No, but I think that those three things I would say to my younger self. Yes.
Would you say, just on the second point, would you say that the urgency is still there, but the urgency is different?
Oh, yeah. It's how you manage urgency. Even the Duracell battery has to be stopped. You have to charge or recharge. The battery, if it just goes, if you don't have time to recharge, you just drop. So I think that's what I call the stop, recharge, pivot, and then go. You get more charge cycles. If you do it too often, too long, like any battery, it dies in a few years. So you need to charge it 80% and keep going, pause 80%, keep going, not 100%, 150%. So urgency is not lack of urgency, it's managing urgency to be long term.
My last question to you is, what question do you think I should ask the next guest or leader that's going to be on the podcast?
I would say what has been the most impactful change in their style of leadership that happened last year. Because I'm seeing more and more leaders, we're getting into this world of TikToks and coming across that, I'm this, I'm that, and look at me, look at the team. I think, yeah, but people are forgetting leaders are still leaders. The style of leadership has to evolve, and I'm changing my style of leadership almost on a year by year basis now, because when you have Gen Z, Gen Alphas, you can't speak the same kind of style of work. Talking to a son of 6, 7, I mean, he hates that phrase when I say it. I mean, things like that. Something you need to change your style of engagement and bringing people together. Again, I'm giving answers away, but I think that would be a question.
Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been very insightful, and I think we'll have to do this again because I think there's a lot more to discuss.
Thank you, Kim. It's an absolute pleasure. I love your podcast, so it's great to be another speaker. It's been a great experience, and we should definitely do more of these.